See, I know that's what people think, but the reality is, it's not abolished. It still exists. It's still legal in certain circumstances.
No, it's not.
We fought a war over this.
I understand people have misconceptions. First of all, we didn't fight a war over slavery. That's a big misconception.
That fight has been going on forever. Of course, it was over slavery.
Lincoln even freed the slaves with the Emancipation Proclamation.
I understand all of that. I understand what all of you are saying. What I'm trying to tell you is the law is the law, and the law did not abolish slavery.
Well, I know there were people in the South who used things like debt claims to try and continue to get labor from their slaves who had been freed from Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the Emancipation Proclamation. I'm talking about the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, which supposedly abolishes slavery and involuntary servitude, but that's not what it does.
It was ratified in the state specifically for that purpose, so to say that it does not abolish slavery is just not true.
I'm not saying it wasn't passed for that purpose. I'm saying the wording of the amendment itself does not abolish slavery.
But what do you mean by that? I mean, it seems like it does.
Yeah, when I read it, it seems like it abolishes slavery.
Well,
so I don't know what you mean.
Here's the text. Here's the text. Let me just read the text. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So there it is. It says you can be punished for a crime by
It says you can be punished
by
for a
becoming
crime.
somebody else's slave. You can be sentenced to slavery or involuntary servitude.
So you're saying it still allows the government to punish people with slavery.
As part of a crime
If they're
sentence.
convicted of a crime, they can be sentenced to slavery, is what you're saying.
It's not what I'm saying. It's what it clearly says in the amendment. You can read it for yourself. Except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted. So all you need to do is convict somebody of a crime, and you can then sentence them to slavery. So it didn't abolish slavery. It still exists under certain circumstances in the United States.
I see what you're saying. You're not saying people are actually being sentenced to slavery. You're saying that they could be under the law.
I understand what you're
So
saying.
it could still exist as a punishment.
It still seems a little far out, if you ask me.
I mean, I never really thought about it when I read it. I just saw it as we're getting rid of slavery. I never really looked into it as they could still use it to punish somebody for a crime by making them into a slave.
Well, it's not something I'm making up. It's right there. It's in the text. You can read it yourself. It's right there. It doesn't abolish slavery, even though everybody believes it does. It still allows slavery to be a condition as a punishment for a crime where you've been convicted.
That's certainly interesting and certainly something worth thinking
I don't
about.
think most people realize that that's the actual text
I
of
think
the
most
amendment.
people just think that it abolished slavery, but I guess if you really read it closely, it doesn't look like it actually abolishes slavery at all. It just says you can't just make somebody a slave. You have to convict them of a crime, and then you can turn them into a slave anytime you want.
I mean, to me, this opens the door for judges to just decide, you know what, I think you're guilty of this crime, and your sentence is to be a slave.
Well, I'm not sure if a judge would really be able to get away with that
I'm
right
not
now.
saying judges are going to be able to do that right now.
They may not do it, but they certainly have the door open if they really wanted to, based on the wording of this
Well, I have
amendment.
to go to court next week for a traffic ticket, so let's just hope the judge doesn't decide to read this and sentence me to be his slave. That would be
pretty bad.
What would you get the ticket for?
I didn't realize I was in a school zone.
Well, maybe they'll make you a slave of the school.
As long as they don't make me one of those traffic guards. God, that would be worse than indentured servitude. Having to sit there and push the button for those little brats all day.
It's not just pushing the button. You have to hold the sign up, telling everybody to stop, walk out, hold your arms up. Like,
Because if somebody's really going to stop for
Well,
that,
that's the last thing I want to have to be is a stinking traffic cop.